Good afternoon. Welcome to the May 11th, 2021 regular board meeting of Everett Public Schools Board of Directors. Everyone for being here on a beautiful afternoon. I'm certain there are other thoughts in our minds of things we could do, but we have business to take care of, and I'm looking forward to this meeting. We have a couple special things in particular. Would you please stand and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd now like to ask Director Bird to cite our land acknowledgement.
We respectfully acknowledge that we are on the traditional lands of the Coast Salish, Salish, and Twila peoples. We express our deepest respect and gratitude to the ancestors of this land and whose shoulders we stand. In Everett Public Schools, we strive to create equitable outcomes and build a culture of inclusive learning for students, teachers, staff.
Thank you. Will the secretary please call the roll?
President Mason,
Present.
Present.
Director Nichols,
Present.
Director Mitchell,
Present.
Director Bird, present. Student Representative Hussein,
Present.
Student Representative Coach Basson, present.
Thank you, Jamie. Dr. Salzman, may you please provide an overview of this evening's agenda?
Yes, good evening, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, and to our public, and to our students out there tonight. Tonight's agenda contains the following: the superintendent's report, a segment for board comments, a segment for public comments, a segment for routine business, a segment for information and discussion, a segment for unfinished business, and upcoming agenda items. Since publishing the agenda, no changes have been made to this agenda.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved. Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda as presented. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we will go ahead and move to the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, say no. The agenda is adopted. Thank you. That takes us to our next item of business, which is recognitions. And tonight we have Miss Melanie West in the room to introduce the Jackson High School Band.
Thank you so much. It's actually the orchestra.
The orchestra, thank you.
But I consider myself a representative for all the performing arts. And I want to thank the school board. I'm here mostly for gratitude. It was 5 years ago that I had my first string quartet right back there. And then in the subsequent years we come back. Last year was virtual and this year's virtual again. But it just means so much to us performing arts teachers, knowing that we have your support and that you appreciate what the performing arts does for students. I personally feel like it's the ground zero for SEL and ground zero for equity. And it's like something that we're passionate about, and we appreciate that you're passionate too. The video that I've made tonight is a conglomeration of in-person videos, a little bit that we've had so far. I took some first day of school videos because I thought it'd be cool to see what they sound like on their first day together, and then as well as some work that students have done virtually over the last year. So we've had lots of experience making videos and all these kinds of things. A lot of it is student produced. So I hope you enjoy this video, and it's a little snippet from both Gateway and Jackson, and I think it's the screen share right there. Okay. And play. All right.
my name is Elise Perkins and I play the cello. My favorite thing about orchestra is that everybody is so kind and we always get help when we ask for it. That's what I love most about orchestra, and that we all get to learn instruments together.
All right, we're recording. Let's do Twinkle one more time, okay? Instruments up. 1, 2, ready, play. Two, ready, repeat. Yay, you guys, that was so good.
Hi, my name's Keelan Langill, and I play the violin in our orchestra. For this project, I worked on the video editing.
Hi, my name is Jaron Santos and I did the audio engineering for the project. I decided to do this for the orchestra because I have a deep love for music production and audio engineering. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoy.
We all appreciate you guys taking time out of your days to watch this concert.
That was incredible. That was so cool. Thank you so much for bringing music into the boardroom, and I only look forward to a day when we get to do it in person, but being able to see that many faces all at once was even better, maybe. I just really appreciate all you've done through this difficult time for those students. Directors, if you want to comment, please feel free.
I don't know how I do not have the tears coming out of my eyes, because they're definitely in there. And I did not know Zoom and our technology could create such beautiful music. So thank you so much. And please, please, please tell your students they are outstanding and our hearts are with them when they go through this difficult time. So thank you.
I just want to say thank you. It's hard not to cry when you do that song, but also I think you chose the perfect song. The Million Dreams is really what we're all trying to shoulder right now. And I know the kiddos are at home with their instruments and they love of learning, love of music, and A Million Dreams is really all I want to say. So we're going to get there, and just thank you for that wonderful presentation. Thank you.
I mean, I can't imagine my education experience without music, and so I was really happy to see that, our kids have not, it's not been the same as it normally would during the normal school year, but it's still really music in the line, and that is phenomenal. So thank you so much for sharing that with us.
I truly want to thank Ms. West. Thank you so much, for what you bring to the district and what you bring to our students. And I want to thank the students at Gateway as well. This is one thing that I truly love about music in our schools. Yeah, this is important. And I'm glad it's there. Thank you so much. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, I'm in the Jackson High School band, and I know Ms. Moffett has been working really hard this year to sort of bring any form of music back to kids and get us opportunities to be playing. So it's really cool to see what the orchestra has done from a band perspective. So thank you, Ms. West. I know you and Ms. Moffett are almost definitely in communication, and I know she's grateful for that. We've heard A Million Dreams a bunch of times in our classes. She keeps playing it for us, so I was like, oh, I know that song. But yeah, it's really good to hear the live music again. I've been around that for years in concert band too.
Thank you again. I think it's pretty clear you made all of our days, so appreciate you being here and sharing that music.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, now on to the other stuff, a little brighter and not so exciting. Actually, we have superintendent's report. Dr. Salzman.
Good evening. First of all, Ms. West, and to the students, I'm not even really speechless. And that was amazing. You talk about determination where students have not for this year, but to see that performance is just amazing. Thank you. And I see our students out here tonight that will be presenting soon. It's great to see you. Thank you for coming in. And to their sponsors that are with us, I thank you for all you've done this year, because I'm sure this is what we predicted. It's been a challenge, so thank you so kindly. May is always a month of a lot of awards and things happening. So the month of May started out with the Principals Month for National Principals Day, May 1st. So I'd like to honor our principals and our assistant principal administrators. Teacher Appreciation Week was last week, and I cannot thank enough the teachers for hard work during these most challenging times in public education. And Nurses Appreciation Week. What our nurses have done is just incredible, just from taking care of children and helping us with the COVID tracing. And we have another group of our unsung heroes, so thank you, nurses. And the military is honored in May, and I just want to call out for everybody that's been in the military, served in our military. Thank you for serving our country. My dad was a World War II veteran, and it's a very special month today. And also Mother's Day. I want to thank all the mothers out there that help all they do for our children and set the standards. And if I forget anything else in the month of May, I do apologize, but Just on a side note, May 31st, one of my children were born, so May is very special to me. And it means a lot to me, so it's a special month. I just want to thank everybody that helps public education during these times. And again, when I look in the eyes of the students that are here tonight, thank you for sticking with us during these times. Many times we honor the adults and they've done amazing work, but to our students, thank you for sticking with us during these times. And I can promise you that days ahead are going to get better. So God bless you, we love you, and thank you so much.
Thank you. I like to call May and June celebration season in the district, because there's so much to celebrate. The sun comes out and we get to honor all the hard work after a long, particularly long school year this year. So it's just exciting to be able to see the faces, hear the music, and recognize those that have done outstanding jobs. With that, we will move to board and student representative comments. I'm going to just start to my left. If Director Hussain would like to start us.
Yes, I would like to thank Silver Lake Elementary School. They had another reading night. It was really done well. It was done over Zoom. And it's so neat to be able to see the students on Zoom and their parents too, because this particular reading night was pet night. So you were reading to your pets. Can you imagine that? I had two of my dogs with me there, and I read poetry. I'm sure my dogs didn't care too much about poetry, but they did leave after a while, but I continued on. But it is so nice to be able to see students still doing reading night and doing it on Zoom. So I'm really grateful. I wish we would have more of these, because these are fun, and it's one way to have the parents engaged too over Zoom. Sometimes it's difficult for parents to come to the school, but over Zoom, it is one of those things where it's nice to see them, and they also interject and read different books to our students, and we still give prizes away. So it was very much fun, and I appreciate that. So please, if any school out there wants to do a reading night and needs a reader, give me a call, send me an email, love to come. Thank you.
I just also want to say happy Mother's Day to all of mothers here and online. And this past year has shown just how special and difficult it is to be a mother. So we've seen that the impacts of the last year have predominantly impacted working women, particularly working women of color. It's been exceptionally difficult economically, financially, and finding students. So I think this year's celebrations of mother is very important.
Okay, so I missed the last regular board meeting, which was right after I attended NSP remotely. And I shared everything I learned there on social emotional learning and equity and access with poor Dr. Salzman. I think I was emailing and texting him the whole time, so see what I learned there and bring here. And was able to have a performance by, my name's escaping me right now, but from Hamilton, and just so much talented, so many talented speakers they brought. Then this last week, attended the Wasco regional meeting where we did start out the meeting with a discussion by, again, escaping me, the district is near Bellingham. They're in the process of adopting their land acknowledgement, working with the Lummi Nation. And so I have representatives from the nation come and speak about how the community is developing this land acknowledgement. And my phone somehow lost all of its notes, because there is actually a term for us immigrants. When we read that land acknowledgement, we are the immigrants reading the land acknowledgement back to the native people, that this is their land and we are all on their land, and spent a lot of time at that meeting really hearing that, and it was really, really lovely to do. But then this last weekend was out of town, where my nephew's college was actually able to have a live concert. And really, it was, up until the last minute, not sure if they could go live and maskless. But it was lovely to see live music again, in a socially distant way, in a field in 40-degree weather, with no warm clothes, because it's 80 degrees today, but that's Midwest weather. But the music today, it is just so wonderful to see, and see so many students ready to be presenting to us later here on my Zoom. This is why we do what we do, it's for the students, so thank you.
It seems like it's been a while since we've had a regular meeting. We're here so much. So I think this is the last one. Andrew and I had a chance to go to Midside Elementary. And thank you, Dr. Betty Powell, for that tour. That school is amazing, it's beautiful. But the one thing I think about is, if anybody has been there, please go. They have this huge outdoor space for kids to just be kids. And as we talk about social and emotional learning, as we talk about moving back from hybrids and into 100% in-person learning, I think it's going to be so important to have those spaces available. So I'm hoping as we're looking at our other schools that we're just being cognizant of it. I know a couple of our schools don't have that luxury, so it's just beautiful to see that the school itself is beautiful. And just the thought that went behind it, and Dr. Powell's her vision, because she was principal for so many years before the remodel and renovation, she was able to just put all of that love and thought into the new school. So just a big thank you to her. The other thing I want to share, talking to parents, I'm just blessed and lucky to talk to so many parents every day. And today I had a great conversation with a parent who had hope. And I can't say that word enough, hope. And the reason why they did was because they realized it was mid-sentence that their kids are going to be back in school 100% next fall. And I went, yeah. And they went, yeah. And it was just this feeling of just hope and knowing that we've been through so much and come so far, that there's going to be this amazing, somewhat normalcy coming in the fall. And the flip side of that is having talked to a lot of our senior parents and having graduation on calendars. And that I cannot tell you, I mean, screenshotting like there is a graduation date, there will be graduation. Again, it's that hope. So I'm excited, I'm honored to be doing this work, and just again, blessed to be talking to so many parents and students who now have hope for what it's going to be like next year. So thank you.
Anita, if you were here, you would be performing, so you can go ahead.
Do I go ahead?
Yes, go ahead.
It's nice to see everyone get accustomed to in-person learning. And I know I'm still remote, but it's very nice to see everyone kind of re-enter society. In the orchestra, you have to be a special, dedicated type of teacher to be able to teach an entire orchestra through Zoom. I know for my leadership class, we can't even sing happy birthday through Zoom, or do the pledge at board meetings through Zoom. So being like, I can't even wrap my mind around teaching an entire orchestra and teaching students how to play an instrument through Zoom. So that's amazing. And on another note, I know a lot of seniors are looking forward to the end of the year, myself included. I have the most extreme case of senioritis that a senior could possibly have, but we are very hopeful to get maybe a socially distanced graduation where we can bring up to 8 guests, or the max is 8. But I hope everyone is hanging in there for just a little while longer.
Yeah, I want to say just kind of on a similar note, it's nice to be back in person. Mr. Gaddick is my math teacher on here, and I think you can attest to the fact that I'm a very chatty student in person, but not online, and it's nice to be able to do that in real life. And it's good to see like people out at schools and doing in-person board meetings like this, and sports teams going back to having to be able to do shortened seasons. And so obviously taking all the precautions we possibly can because we're not out of this yet, but I want to echo what Director Berg said about hope, because that's definitely what I've been feeling. It's not the same feeling in the classroom. It's weird when you look around sometimes and there's only 3 or 4 other kids in the classroom, but either way, just being at school and feeling like we are part of the community of the school is a really important part of learning. So I just want to thank everyone that has made that possible in our district, because I know there was a lot of planning that went into it.
Thank you for sharing that. I just want to mention also, Director Lassane and myself also had a tour of Woodside, and to Director Berg's point, the outdoor learning spaces now are really integrated into all the building, or all the new or renovations that we do. So for example, North Middle School is another great example of, you know, a wonderful outdoor space for the students. And then Hammer Creek Elementary has the best with they truly have outdoor learning space, not just outdoor space for students. And I just think that is just such a key component as we look to modernize older schools, to be able to provide that, even just the larger windows, to be able to let the sunlight in. And, you know, when you think about home and, you know, the in-person meeting and being able to talk to people, I also personally just find the weather so much more hopeful. You have a day like today versus a dark February day when it's raining. It really does help with that feeling of hope. So just glad to be back in person here in the boardroom and have everyone around. Okay, so with that, we are going to move on to approving the consent agenda. Dr. Salzman, can you please provide an overview? Oh, oh, thank you. I scrolled too much. Thank you. We will go ahead and move to public comments, and I believe we do have a public comment evening. Jamie, you could go ahead and read that, please.
Yes, we received this public comment from Mr. Jeff Everett. Good afternoon. Subject, snow wildcat. I'm a bit disappointed in Everett SD's staff for not sharing any information on snow wildcat at the school board meeting and having no plans to do so in the remainder of the school year. In a typical non-pandemic year, over 100 Everett High students participate in snow wildcat. Everett is one of 14 school districts from 2 counties that snow wildcat serves. These high school students from Snohomish and Island counties are expanding their network of friends. They are learning job skills, maybe a career in one of the 5 pathways available. One interesting fact is that the construction trades course, students learn how to build tiny houses. Not only do they learn by doing about the structural, plumbing, and electrical systems involved in house building, these completed tiny houses are then given to the Low-Income Housing Institute of Seattle. These tiny houses end up helping homeless people get off the streets, out of tents, and starting a new life. Isn't that incredible and inspiring, worth sharing and promoting? Recommended action items for you to consider, please. Number 1, require the Everett School District CTE administrators to create and present a report every year at a board meeting on how Everett students are participating and benefiting from snow wildcat. Number 2, 1 or more board members should attend the snow wildcat open house and report back. Number 3, require more information on snow wildcat courses in Everett SD's high school course catalogs, similar to Arlington, Wood Stevens, and Snohomish school districts. Number 4, find and share success stories from recent graduates, as the student board representative, bless her heart, did at the last regular meeting. She kindly shared the fact that her brother greatly benefited from the snow wildcat auto shop courses last year. I also bet that he made good friends from other high schools and other school districts in those same courses. Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you for reading that, and thank you to Mr. Epicard for bringing that to our attention. We will follow up. Okay, now we move to the consent agenda, and I'll ask Dr. Salzman to please provide an overview.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair, Board of Directors, and the public this evening. The board's consent agenda includes repetitive business items such as meeting minutes, personnel actions, expense vouchers, surplus goods, gifts, grants, and current contracts. Sometimes includes items that occur less frequently but are of a routine business nature. These items are usually reviewed by the board in the Friday report, 1 or more weeks before the board meeting. This gives directors time to ask staff questions or to consider discussion about the policy implications of those items. The board votes on the consent agenda in a single motion. By its definition, a consent agenda is not debatable. In the case of this consent agenda, the superintendent's office received no questions regarding items on the consent agenda. The consent agenda is presented and published for board approval.
Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second. It has been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Would any director like to remove an item from the consent agenda and place it in new business of the agenda? Hearing no requests, we will go ahead and move to the vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. Consent agenda is approved. That takes us to item 11, strategic progress monitoring, and tonight we do not have a strategic progress monitoring item, which then takes us to information and discussion. And 12.01 is Associated Student Body Budget 2021-22. Before Ms. Floyd steps to the lectern and introduces, I just want to let the students know that this is hands down one of our favorite presentations of the entire year. And we wish that you were all in the boardroom so we could see you in person and say hi and meet you. Know that we're just actually a bunch of parents ourselves up here. And so we've all had students in the district. One has students coming through the district soon, and we just look forward to hearing what you have to say. With that, I'll ask Ms. Floyd to introduce tonight's schools and students.
Good afternoon. We do know how much the board looks forward to the high school ASB budget presentations, and students are likewise excited to share with you what they've accomplished during the year, despite these challenging times we're in. Should any revisions of the ASB budgets be necessary, students have time to take changes or to make changes prior to the end of the school year. Formal adoption will occur in August along with the other funds that you will be adopting. And with that, if there are no initial questions for me, we can proceed with the presentations. First, it's my pleasure to introduce the ASB Activities Advisor from Cascade High School, Ms. Kelly Rogers.
Awesome. Hello, good evening. Kelly Rogers, I'm the ASB Advisor at Cascade High School. And give 1 second, we'll just get the presentation loaded here. There we go. Awesome, great. So I am really happy to introduce to you tonight our hardworking ASB team. We have Rukia Yosef, our current ASB president, Binta Balde, our incoming ASB president, and Dylan Austin, our treasurer.
Hello, we are here to present to the school board for your approval of our 2021 to 2022 ASB budget. We will begin by discussing the budget development and our budget development process, and ending the slideshow with our ASB snapshots showcasing points of pride for this year. We will begin with our ASB budget. First off, we will talk about our revenues. If you go to the 2021 to the 2022 budget column, you see that our beginning fund balance is $226,000. And with total revenues, we have $739,000. In the club account, there is a $100,000 decrease because of cheer uniforms. This year, cheer has spent $100,000 on their uniforms, and we did not need to build capacity in the upcoming budget because they will not need them for the upcoming year. Now we will be talking about our expenditures. In the 2021 to the 2022 budget, we have total available resources of $960,000. And with total expenditures, we have $760,000. There is also a decrease in the club account because we have found ways, as clubs in the ASB have found new ways to transport to their to their competitions and events virtually instead of physical transportation. So it cut down our costs by a lot. This is a slide about our budget breakdowns. We will be talking about our breakdowns of revenues and our breakdown of expenditures. As you can see, the categories stay consistent, but there is a difference in the general student body account. The 7% has been distributed to athletics and clubs, which will be used for their events and activities. Now we will be talking about our fund balance comparison. In the 2021 to the 2022 budget column, for ending fund balance, we have $198,000. Two differences are seen in the graduating classes accounts and the club account. For graduating classes, we see an increase in budget because we hope to see seniors fundraising for their senior prom, dances, and activities. And we see a decrease in budget for clubs because we hope to see clubs back in school. We hope to see students who are in clubs to be back in school next year and hoping that they can use that money for their clubs and activities. Now I will turn to Dylan, who will be talking about the budget development.
I will be breaking down ASB's detailed process of the 21-22 budget development. The budget development process began with ASB contacting club advisors and student leads to submit their budget proposal for next year's budget. We collected an estimate of their fundraising, their expenditures, and estimated contribution requests to ASB for funding they would like help with. For next school year, our athletic director will be overseeing the larger budget and provided information regarding athletic program revenue and expenditures. Once all the information was collected, ASB officers reviewed budget proposals to compare with past spending and contribution requests to develop our 21-22 budget. $61,000 is the general ASB revenue for activities and athletics. ASB ID cards and beverage machines have stayed consistent, therefore we expect it to remain the same for the 21-22 school year. In regards to dances, while we hope to have similar revenue through dances as in past years, we are being realistic about the future of dances with COVID guidelines in mind. Our goal of spending $61,000 is rooted in equity between clubs, athletics, and whole school activities. For clubs, our focus will be on competition costs. Our athletic focus is on a 4-year uniform cycle as well as season costs, and our activities will be prioritized for inclusivity of all students such as Tolo, Homecoming, Culture Night, Talent Show, and Tyro Literary Magazine printing. Next year, athletic teams and clubs can request funds through our ASB contribution process, and our ASB will determine if those needs can be met. Next is our ASB snapshot by Binta Balde.
This year, being a pandemic has been a huge obstacle that Cascade has had to overcome, but we did manage to keep the fun and spirit alive. Although students were not on campus, it was still important to us as a school to keep students connected. Some things we did was the Bruin Spotlight on Instagram, where every so often we chose one student to post with some get to know me questions. We also did drive-through events that students really loved. For example, the junior class did a stress relief packet that had face masks, popcorn, stress balls, coloring books, and stuff like that. And we also had students and staff send very creative encouragement videos. We are very proud that we were still able to have a successful annual food drive this year, where we were able to feed 185 families. Students, staff, the community, and alumni all came together. We kept the food drive COVID safe by having collections through drop-offs outside. Small groups of students sorted and boxed the food, and alumni dropped off the food. The Bruin Pantry also got food from the food drive that was able to feed 100 families a week. Some fun and COVID-safe events that we did was a virtual Spirit Week, where students and staff sent pictures of them participating to the Instagram. We also had lunchtime activities where students could play games like Among Us on Zoom, where they could go into breakout rooms and play with their peers. A big hit was the fans in the stands. If you can see Dr. Saltzman in the picture. We really wanted the athletes to feel supported and feel like they had a crowd. So students and staff were able to pay to have their pictures at the stands. And yeah. We definitely feel that Cascade did a good job at keeping the spirit alive and meeting the emotional and social needs of the students while being remote. We now open the floor for questions.
Thank you very much for a great presentation. Really creative stuff given the limitations that you had this year, and appreciate you still being able to pull together a budget and look forward to next year in terms of the changes from this year to next. With that, I'm going to turn it over and ask directors, do you have any questions or comments?
I just want to also thank you for all the points of pride and how you guys continue to help the students at Cascade. But I think the thing that we have asked for, which I definitely saw, is spending down that fund balance. So thank you so much for your fiduciary responsibility and making sure that the money is going where it's needed. This was an unusual year this year, so we'll see what next year brings, but it looks like you guys are your estimates. We'll see how close you are, but thank you so much for your hard work.
So I just have a question, I'm just curious, so the cheer uniforms, so is it typical for us to, do you guys charge the cheerleaders, or is this ASB pick up the cheer uniform cost? I don't know why that stuck out to me, because I know a lot of high schools charge the cheer uniforms, so I'm wondering, is that, sorry, I'm looking at my screen and looking this way. Generally, is fundraising that happens for cheer uniforms. If there is an inability to pay, then we look for ways to cover those costs. Okay, and then the beverage machines, is the same in beverage machines, even with COVID, with that 6,000 was still, just like for us, students on campus, but there was another kind of machines. You're looking at revenues? Yeah. Okay. That is most likely, and Ms. Rogers can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's a budget to budget, and so they anticipated bringing that much in. I'm not sure where they ended up this year. And then my last question was about dances and prom, and I haven't heard, is there going to be prom this year for the schools, or is it I think each school is doing something a little bit different. Cascade can probably address that, and then the other schools can as well later. I'm just wondering about the ASB impact on that.
I was going to say, sorry, we have some volume problems here. If you wanted to repeat the question, I can clarify.
And I know exactly the situation you're in. I was in it last week, and so it's with the mask and the microphone. So I was just asking about prom, and just if there's going to be a prom, and it's kind of edited. I just thought in kind of ASB's kind of participation with the prom process.
So for this year for prom, our senior officers have decided to do something a little bit different just because, you know, the guidelines were switching back and forth quite a bit. And so they wanted to stick with something that they felt like they could do regardless. And so they're planning kind of like an outdoor field day. So nothing formal, something that's free for all seniors to attend using the money that they have left in their account from their past fundraising over the years. And they're still trying to finalize the details for that, but that's where they chose to focus their efforts. Especially knowing what the dancing guidelines are. Based on state guidelines, they weren't too keen on the idea of only 10 students dancing at a time in masks 6 feet apart, and so they opted for an outdoor activity instead.
Thank you so much. As a mom, I mean, 10 feet apart sounds beautiful for me. Just put it out there. Thank you so much.
I do want to thank you students for the hard work that you did putting together your presentation. I know it's really difficult to estimate or guesstimate or look to the future as to what it will pan out. But you did an awesome job. Thank you so much for putting this together and working hard at it. Thank you.
Okay, and I'm just gonna say on a final note, the thing that jumped out to me the most was your goal for next year, the equity between clubs, athletics, and school-wide activities as well, just to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to participate and receive some of the funds that you folks have and support. So thank you for that. Okay, with that, Cascade, thank you very much for a great presentation.
And next we have Everett High School with Ms. Megan Adams.
Hello, I'm Megan Adams, the ASB advisor for Everett High, and I have the honor of introducing two outstanding students, one of whom you know pretty well. Amina Hussein is this year's ASB president. And then also joining us today is Reed Fowler, who is our current ASB treasurer. So I'm going to hand it over to them.
Thank you so much, Miss Adams. Let me just get my computer propped up. All right. President Mason, Superintendent Salzman, and the board, thank you so much for having us tonight. Today, we'll be presenting our 2021 to 2022 ASB budget plan. In our presentation, we'll be covering points such as revenues and expenditures, breakdown of those two items, a fund balance comparison, revenue distribution, and we'll also elaborate on our budget development process that we go through with our fellow ASB cabinet. Lastly, we'll be going over our points of pride, which primarily focuses on club events, fundraisers that helped give back to our community this year. We'll be more than able to entertain any questions at the end.
Thank you, Amina. Now we will begin going over our 2021-2022 proposed budget compared to that of the past two fiscal years. First off, for the revenues, you can see in the right-hand column that we plan to bring in about $480,000 total into the various accounts next year. As you can see, that is down from this year's projected $530,000. This decrease is due to the fact that the 2020-2021 budget was proposed last spring before many of the current norms for the school year were finalized. So the new budget does reflect a bit more realistic understanding about the capabilities for fundraising under the new operating norms. In relation, the projected revenue for both this year and next year are both significantly greater than the actual revenue of $260,000 brought in during the 2019-2020 year. This is due in part to the fact that with that year being cut so unexpectedly short, many of the opportunities that clubs were planning on to earn money simply didn't happen. Additionally, this discrepancy is also encompassed by a growing uncertainty and optimism towards fundraising capabilities as our clubs, athletics, and students slowly reanimate towards normal processings. As for expenditures, it is largely the same scenario. Next year, we predict to spend about $510,000, which again is down from the $560 predicted for this year in order to reflect the lower predicted revenue. Additionally, the reason for the fact that the expenditures for this year and the next year are again significantly greater than that of last year is again due to the fact that last year being cut short, many of the opportunities that clubs had thought they would be able to spend their money simply disappeared. This again is reflected in the lower magnitude of spending last year, coming in at about $240,000, which also accounts for some money being left over in the accounts. Nevertheless, we expect to end next year with about $160,000 total. As you can, for a comparison between the breakdowns between the revenues and expenditures, you can see from these charts that we predict to have roughly equal distributions between fundraising and spending. Most noticeably, you can see that our clubs and athletic sectors are roughly equal in both magnitude and in consistency between fundraising and spending, which does highlight the well-roundedness of our students and values here at Everett High School. Additionally, this balance is consistent with the directive to spend down the budget and aim to spend the money on the students who raised it, which does account for the deviations between the two charts being only by a few percentage points. On this slide, we do have a comparison between our ending fund balances. With an expected ending next year of $160,000, we can see that this is consistently down from the two previous years, which reflects both normal spending down as well as spending of the money that was unable to be spent during the 2019-2020 year. And now Amina will present our ASB budget development process.
Thank you, Reed. There are a few things we do as an ASB cabinet when we are organizing our budget for this year and the following. First, our ASB groups, such as clubs, organizations, sports teams, and our graduating class will submit a proposed budget. This includes all their current available funds, which is all the funds they have in their accounts as of now. Our bookkeeper then gives us the past and present spending of any and every organization, and this helps us better understand trends like how much does this club spend around this particular time, and do they always ask for this amount? We then look at each organization and look to see if the money they are requesting for their club somewhat aligns with the money they are receiving as in fundraisers, donation, club events, and so on. After we scour through all the proposals, we create a budget, then send the budget to our activities director, Mr. Vergara, for approval. As I previously mentioned, we have club requests that we look into case by case, and we either revert or provide help depending on how much the clubs are funding and asking for. Of course, we have many special requests. Like this year, our BSU hosted a 3-day Black History Month conference, which consisted of webinar sessions and a guest speaker. And in this request, we are asked to cover a lot of it due to the lack of funding COVID has prevented our clubs from doing. So we asked ourselves questions like, who does this help and who's its intended audience and how will it improve student wellness? And in this case, we concluded it would improve student wellness and decided to cover the cost because this event would be accessible to all students.
On this slide, we have a breakdown of our revenues by source, such as from the selling of ASB cards, beverage machines, and dances. The biggest difference between the predicted spread and that of past years is a stark decrease, with about 8,000 expected less coming in from ASB cards and about 6,000 less from dances. This prediction is due largely to the new House Bill 1660, which requests free ASB cards and ticketed event admissions for all students on the free and reduced lunch program. Here at Everett, that does encompass about 50% of our students. But despite diminished revenue potential, we do expect to make up some of this difference through our amazingly generous Blue and Gold Club and other alumni networks, as well as some supplementation from the district. Now we will take a look at some of our ASB points of pride and snapshots.
Our nation has had one of the most historic education-changing events it's had in decades, which, as you know, caused our schools to shut down and force students, teachers, and staff to work remotely. The Everett School District was a pioneer in a lot of the new changes that would take a hold on our nation for the next year and a half. And Everett High had no plan. And as a cabinet who focuses on student activities and thrives off student involvement, we were left to wonder, what are we going to do now? As some of you may know, Everett High has had many successful community events while staying 6 feet apart and masked up. Trunk or Treat was a student favorite where we handed out bags of candy to community members through a CVC pipe while decorating our cars and any and everything you can possibly think of. We did something similar with Seagull Sweethearts and passed out bags of candy on Valentine's Day. We had a huge holiday light show where we covered the A building and decorations in holiday lights while community members drove by on Kobe while passing out cocoa and candy. As I mentioned before, we had a very successful Black History Month webinar where we received very positive feedback from our community members. And in this webinar, we touched base on the importance of supporting Black students in the BLM movement and how we can help.
Lastly, we will touch on some of the community service activities that EHS participated this year. In a time when our capabilities were stunted, the need became the greatest. Nevertheless, our amazing Seagulls were still able to get out and help serve the community. For example, though we were unable to send students to stores as we usually do for our annual food drive, we still managed to raise food for our EHS families in need. Additionally, our Latinos Unidos Club organized a toy drive for families in our community who needed help around the holidays. It was truly beautiful to see the amount of community outreach and uplifting of each other that we saw in and around EHS this season. Additionally, these families also received help with holiday meals. Finally, our amazing library and bibliophile society spearheaded an outreach program where EHS was able to partner with Jackson Elementary School first graders so that we could share our love of reading and help enrich the community of future Seagulls.
This year tested us all, and Everett High has proved no matter how many obstacles are put in our way, we will always support our own for as long as time will allow. We can now open the floor to any questions.
Thank you for another exceptional presentation. I can't believe the creativity that our students have taken on during this time when all your normal fundraising activities have been put aside and the ways that you have continued to develop community in your schools. And I'm sure we're about to see some more in the next two presentations as well. Directors, do you have any questions or comments for our Everett High team?
I was just going to say, it is amazing to see the creativity. But one thing that struck me about this as well as past games is that our future leaders, our student leaders are putting things through an equity lens, and I think that's really important. I think we saw that in all the presentations where we're looking at equity as we're making decisions about budgets. And I think one thing that I think our future leaders know, that your budget is a reflection of your values. And I am so heartened that our students' values are very much reflected in the ASB budget. So just thank you for that, Everett Cascade, and the next week's thing.
And I'd like to also comment, I very much appreciate the fact that you looked at what the current House bill will do as far as ensuring that all students will be able to have ASB cards. And you reflected that take in your budget revenues expectations. And even though you had to scour through all the numbers, you did an awesome job doing it, so that it would reflect the equity involved in that. Thank you so very much. Good presentation.
Thank you. Okay, no further comments. So with that, we'd like to say outstanding job, and we'll go ahead and move forward.
All right, and our final presentation for the evening is Jackson High School, Mr. Jason Gannett.
Thank you very much, Ms. Floyd. Rawan, I was gonna say before you screen share, it's okay. I'm gonna go off script for just a second. I have something that I just really wanna kind of get out there. Sorry if I get all emotional. This year was very different than most years, which resulted in many more phone calls and emails to the district. Specifically, we couldn't have done any of our work this year without the support and thoughtfulness of Robert Polk. On behalf of all of the ASB programs in our district, I would like to extend my most sincere gratitude for all of his support this year and over the previous years. You will see his fingerprints on all of the events and activities in our presentation tonight. I know how much he would have loved to have been here with us tonight. And again, I cannot express enough gratitude. We can only hope that we live up to the wonderful example that he set through his actions and words. So with that, I want to shift gears now to our presentation. So again, I'm Jason Gaddick. I am the ASB Advisor and Activities Coordinator at Jackson High School. And I have with me 4 students, 2 of our current ASB officers and 2 of our incoming ASB officers who will be sharing our presentation with you tonight. I have Arnav Sood, who is our current ASB president. I have Rawan Alakali, who is our incoming ASB president. I have Min Kim, our current ASB treasurer, and Dylan Thong, our incoming ASB treasurer. So without further ado, students, it's on you.
In this presentation, we're going to be covering 3 main things. Up first, we're going to be going over our 2021-2022 ASB budget. We'll be breaking that down in terms of our revenue, expenditures, and compare that with our past years. Along with that, we'll be describing the budget development process and describe how we came up with the numbers that we did. And finally, we'll be giving a snapshot of our ASB this year and how much we were able to accomplish.
First, we're going to look at the projected budget we have made for next year's 2021-2022 school year. If you look at the numbers from the 2019-2020 school year, you can see that the revenue of $463,000 is so much lower than the other 2 years. However, this is because we lost the most profitable quarter of the school year due to the pandemic. One specific event, the Carnegie Hall field trip, was set to bring in about $300,000 of revenue, and this number pretty much makes up the difference between the revenue of the 2019-2020 school year and the other 2 school years. Looking at the table, you can see that the revenue from clubs specifically in that year is so much lower than the other 2 because field trips and state competitions were canceled. Based on this knowledge, we had created a budget for this school year, expecting for things to go back to normal again. However, no one could have predicted that the pandemic would go on for so long and almost take out an entire school year. We kept this mindset though when projecting next year's budget, hoping that these field trips and state competitions would resume once again. We are projecting to make $758,000 of revenue in the 2021-2022 school year. When looking at the expenditures, the same trend continues. In the 2019-2020 school year, we spent only $466,000 due to the pandemic. These field trips and state competitions that I mentioned before were canceled, so we never ended up spending that money. Looking at the graduating classes for the 2019-2020 school year, we only spent $6,000 because prom never happened, and this is where almost all the expenditures come from. Next year, we are expecting to have prom, and therefore the projection of $30,000 in expenditures is so much higher than it was last year. Looking at the ending fund balance, we are expecting it at $222,000, compared to the $430,000 it was last year. This number is close to the 20% of total available resources, which we know is what the district wants to project, compared to what it was last year at almost 50%. Once again, we had planned this year's budget expecting for things to have gone back to normal, but that has unfortunately not been the case. We have done this once again, planning for next year's expenditures, and with all these events I have mentioned hopefully coming back next year, we are projecting to spend $802,000 in expenditures. This is a visual representation of what I have just explained in the last two slides. You can see that clubs are a major source of revenue and expenditure for our school, which shows why last year, when so many club events were canceled, the revenue and expenditure totals were so small. This breakdown of the ending fund balance shows how we were left with more money in every single category in the 2019-2020 school year than we are projecting for next year. This is a result of the pandemic and all the canceled events, being field trips, state competitions, prom, fundraisers, and athletic competitions, which is the reason why we had so much money remaining at the end of the school year. For next year, we are projecting to only have $222,000 remaining at the end of the school year, which shows that we are spending more on the students who are generating this money.
I'll be breaking down budget development, ASB budget process, and revenue distribution. ASB process. Every year, each club, sports, and activity that requests general revenue in the school submit a budget plan to ASB by March. And through discussions with ASB officers, proposals are accepted or altered to fit the desired budget. If the plan is approved by ASB board, it is sent to assistant principals and ASB secretary for input and acceptance. And also to those who request funding, so that if questions arise or other factors need to be clarified, the budget proposal can be edited and resubmitted for approval. Revenue distribution. Officers from clubs, sports, and activities contact the ASB secretary and set up a presentation where they confront of ASB and request a transfer from the ASB General Reserve account. After the presentation, ASB evaluates the club, sports, or activities finance and fundraising attempts, as well as their involvement in school. And then ASB votes on whether or not to approve, amend, or decline the request. Last of all, the final decision will be reported by ASB Treasurer and ASB Secretary. This is our revenue projection for ASB, and it stayed fairly consistent over the years. However, one thing to highlight is that we have lowered our projection for revenue from yearbook in order to factor in pandemic and in order to stay on conservative side. We are assuming revenue for dancing will increase because of our plan to continue in-person school.
And now we will be sharing some of our points of pride and things that we've done in ASB this year. Jackson has been keeping pretty busy. So on this next slide, we've been using a lot of different platforms to try and keep our students engaged. We've really heavily used social media and YouTube and Zoom. To start off, for our fall PEP assembly, we had both a webinar and a YouTube live stream to account for the spillover. The turnout was amazing for that one. We had, I think, about a total of 1,000 students show up to that. We also, during that live stream, had a school spirit Kahoot live, which also went over great. And we debuted our first TikTok contest, which for that, actually, the hashtag that we used
now has over 1 million views, and the winning TikTok from the first competition that we did had over 100,000 views. So that was amazing. And then as you can see, we also had a winter, a spring, and a Veterans Day Assembly video to account for people's participation and their convenience. And then we also kept up the competitions on social media. We had a cookie decorating competition, March Madness, and so many more. And on this next slide, you're going to see a bunch of photos from the things that I just listed. My favorite that I'll just highlight real quick is the pumpkin carving contest winner. And I thought that this was Yoda for the longest time. I have been recently informed that it is ET. It's still very, very impressive though.
Along with that, we've also had multiple drive-through events as well as community service events. This spring, we had a Pack the Lot Spirit drive-through event where we got many students and clubs involved, and it was extremely successful. We also had an Oktoberfest drive-through event for elementary age children back in October, which was also extremely successful. We held a toy drive and we surpassed our goal of 500 toys, and we raised over 800 toys, which is incredible for many families who were struggling through the pandemic. And then we also held a food drive where we raised over 5,000 pounds of food. This was back in winter, and we are currently hosting another food drive this weekend. Along with that, we also held many other events to raise school spirit and to make Jackson a better community. We held Spirit Weeks, fall, winter, and spring. In fact, our Spring Spirit Week is going on right now. We had a care week to check in with students' mental health, 73 questions video with our new principal, Mr. Bala, community building events, such as the Freshman Among Us Zoom night and senior shirts and senior video. And along with that, we also had a small business of the month for every month after November, where we helped out local businesses who were struggling through the pandemic. That's all that we had for this year. This is our spirit goddess, Oksana, and that's all we have for you. Please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Another fabulous presentation, and you guys did not disappoint in terms of your creativity as well. A lot of great events and just really thinking out of the box. I also just, for all the students, want to say how much we appreciate you looking forward and thinking about what next year might look like. And I think Dylan mentioned, who would have ever thought that this pandemic would have gone on a whole school year. So thank you for your patience and your flexibility in figuring out how to bring us these presentations in a new and very different way. I did have a question specifically for your budget. Your club expenditures and revenues were quite a bit higher than your athletics, where with the other two high schools it was more equal. And I'm just curious why that is, whether you have a whole lot more clubs than and needs than athletics, or what's driving those expenditures and revenues.
We have quite a few clubs at our school. I think even this year during a pandemic, we had 45 clubs who were actively participating. And in a usual year, we have about 70 to 80, I'd like to say. So we do have quite a few clubs. And in terms of clubs, the band, theater, and all of those big activities fall under that same club category. And they have huge field trips, usually year round. So those count for club expenditures as well. So that might explain some of that difference.
Great, thank you for that explanation. Other directors, do you have comments or questions for Jackson High School?
Yes, Jackson, I would like to just say you did an awesome job with your presentation. I think Oksana and I might have met somewhere, so she looks very familiar, but very good presentation. I really appreciate your school pride events that you've had. You did an awesome job of expressing them and telling them, telling us what you did during that time. Thank you very much. I also have a question for Ruth. This happens to deal with ASB cards. Yes. In the last presentation at Everett High, they made a point of bringing forward the reduced revenue they foresaw Do we explicitly have an account to handle that? Have we established an account with expectations on how much that might be for our students that are on free and reduced lunch that need ASB cards?
We do have a plan for that. So the general fund has committed to, if there is a difference in, due to House Bill 1660, if there is a difference in their ASB revenue or other revenues associated, we will make up that difference. Right now, we're thinking it may be in the $100,000 range, but it's difficult to know exactly what that is. Although we, you know, this is all about equity, and we want to be able to provide, we have always provided free access to ASB cards and athletic events. Even before this, it's just that now with this bill, there's more heightened awareness, and there may be other people that we didn't foresee needing this ability to get free access. And so we wanted to be prepared and let the schools know that their ASB budgets will not be impacted if it comes to that there being a difference in their revenues. So the district will make that up, and we have a plan for that in our budget.
And this also includes their parents as well? The students that are receiving free and reduced lunch, if their parents wish to attend any kind of event in this manner, yes?
Yes, we have a plan for that as well. And so there will be some sort of pass that we come up with that the parents can get at the school, and they'll be able to show that, either a punch card or something like that. It isn't totally fleshed out plan, but there will be a way for them to show that at an activity and be able to get in free as well.
Thank you very much. I wanted to make sure all of the ASB that were present today would hear that comment. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
I did want to thank all the students that presented today. It's really, really good. And just a general comment that, you know that as a consumer, as a citizen, that things cost more, every year. It just, this kind of goes to how much of the student experience does not come from, state budgets or federal budgets and things like that. And it's such a significant amount of money that we need to raise to have these things like family clubs. I think you guys are doing amazing job getting the students and finding students. So thank you very much for your service. I look forward to hearing from all of you. Thank you for having an opportunity on this next week.
I just want to say I did take a picture off Santa and sent it to my daughter in the class of 2020. So glad I'm going to see you guys at graduation next month. And I am speaking loudly, so hopefully you can hear that. You guys have, as well as all three of our high schools, have award-winning clubs, winning everything. You always try to hold on to your money so you can pay for all their trips. But I want to acknowledge all you guys, as well as the other two high schools, really spending down that fund balance, really doing a good responsibility to not hold on to that money and spend it on your fellow students. So thank you so much, and just look forward to seeing you as well as the other seniors at graduation. So thank you.
And I echo what my colleagues have said. I think one of the things that all of these presentations have shown us is how connected our students are to the community. And it shows in the activities that we planned. I'm a little bit biased because I've got two at Jackson. So as we were running down those activities, I knew exactly what you were talking about. And just letting parents out there know, when you first came up with a small business support per month, I thought my kids were joking, because it wasn't, hey mom, let's support small businesses. It was, hey mom, I need money for school now to go get coffee. And I was a little bit confused. And then luckily there was information online, and it was great. And I thought, what a great way for us to support and actually get to know some small businesses in our area that we actually didn't know about as a family. So I can't say enough how proud I am of all of the students at all of our high schools. And also, and I'm sure it hits my fellow members, you guys are CEOs, CFOs, COOs of almost $1 million companies. And really let that sink in, and really make sure you put that on your college applications, your resumes, get it into the Common App. Let people know you are out there getting it done and grinding it in a way that most of us adults did not have an opportunity to do, if ever, well into our 30s. So you are not only future leaders, but you're current leaders with very good budgets, very good responsibilities, doing a fantastic job. So just thank you, thank you, thank you.
I'll just say, as a student adjunct in high school, there were a lot of really good opportunities this year. I especially enjoyed the Pack a lot. I know I saw a couple of you there, and that was a really, really fun opportunity. I think it was the first time I saw a lot of people from school in almost a year, just because it had such a great turnout. So I really wanted to highlight that. We had probably 20 or 30 clubs there with different groups, and then students going drive through. So it was a really cool opportunity to see everyone at their booths and everything. And also, as an active club participant at Jackson, I just want to emphasize to the board how great the club involvement is at Jackson and how many opportunities there are to really find your niche, and just appreciate how well funded that is for our school, because that's such a privilege to get to pursue the things that you're interested in an organized manner, with people around you. So thank you to ASB for everything this year. And I'm sure for the other schools as well, but I just go to Jackson. So.
I mentioned one more thing, because I just thought of it when you said that. When our family started at Jackson, there wasn't a VSU. And immediately, and thank you to Dr. Peters right there, just thank you for just starting it. And it has that culture of, oh, we don't have it, let's do it. And it wasn't a thing, it wasn't a process, there was no committee meetings. They just let the students go. And so I think when you see that additional club participation, there are probably clubs that students started this year because they had an idea, they got, where two or more gathered, and they said, let's do it. And I know my kiddos are on a lot of Zooms for these clubs that are still really active. So just thank you for that, and thank you for allowing our students to socially and emotionally grow in the pandemic.
Thank you. And I'd like to just say finally, in addition to the fiduciary responsibilities that you all have and are going to be putting on your resumes, as Director Burke pointed out, you have really been on the forefront of creating your school culture in a very difficult time. And I just hope you all recognize what a big deal that is. Looking at the creativity that you put into connecting students, worrying about their social emotional health, it has just been tremendous. And we have a lot of teachers that have stepped in and provided support, but there's only so much that us adults can do, and you folks have really made it happen for each of your schools. So I just want to thank you for continuing that positive school culture. I'd like to also thank the advisors, because you're the ones that have helped make it all happen, and really appreciate what you've done. And for the kind words for Mr. Polk as well. I do believe that his fingerprints are all over this tonight. And to Ruth Floyd for spearheading the efforts here in the office. I would like to thank her as well. So I hope you all have a great evening. You're welcome.
Can we acknowledge Jackson for the Jackson students?
Yeah. Okay. You came last and we kind of missed that, but equally as appreciative.
I know Amina, I know you're in there, in the box.
Yes,
so.
I include our student representatives in the leadership role in creating the culture and keeping students connected.
That's all we have for you this evening, unless you have any further questions.
No further questions. We're going to say thank you once again and hope that you have a wonderful evening. The sun is still out. You can stick around for the board meeting if you want, or you can go have some fun. Thank you.
Well done. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, it is time in the evening when we're going to take a short 15-minute break, and it is currently 6:22, so that brings us back here 6:37, is that correct? Is my math correct? We will resume the meeting at that time. Thank you.
Where do we do dinner, or how do we do dinner?
Okay, Rose. I just learned her age. She doesn't know. I put her in the role of being the person on yes, and for this presentation.
It's a good point.
Thanks, Jared. I wasn't very good. I swear I wasn't very good. You're far more incredible than me. My friend here. Okay, I think we're gonna go ahead and get restarted here with board meeting. After our wonderful ASB presentations, we are moving on with our information and discussion, and 12.02 is our dual language Spanish language, or sorry, dual language Spanish language arts adoption. I need to put on my glasses, sorry, they fogged up, so I'm trying to do it now. Dr. Bowden, please introduce tonight.
Fabulous. Thank you, President Mason, Board of Directors, Superintendent Salzman. We're really excited tonight. We have Director Callie Spear, she's the Director of ELA and Humanities, and she'll be presenting this evening's information around the dual language Spanish language arts instructional materials adoption. So I'd love for Callie to come up to the podium and she can lead you through this adoption process. We know that a few board meetings ago, you heard about our dual language program. So that was the who and the what, and now we're going to talk a little bit about what we're going to be teaching during that. So Callie?
Thank you so much for having me here today to share with you a little bit more about our dual language Spanish language arts instructional materials adoption and our recommendation for the instructional materials. Before I get started to share a little bit more about our process, I do want to share a few words from Principal Blythe Young, who is also very excited and was a very important person within this process.
Buenas noches. Soy Blythe Young, directora de la Escuela Primaria Emerson. Esta noche, ustedes van a oír un poco de la adopción del Plan de Estudios para la Enseñanza del Idioma Español. El plan de estudios de alta calidad, disponible en español y también en inglés, diseñado para acelerar el aprendizaje, mejora dramáticamente los resultados tanto para estudiantes como para profesores, cultural y familiarmente responsivo, y español adecuado a las necesidades de nuestra comunidad escolar.
All right, so Blythe Young wanted to introduce and set out purpose and a little bit about the curriculum materials in Spanish, and now I will do the same in English. And so, high level, the purpose of today is to share with you our Spanish language arts instructional materials adoption process, the characteristics of the materials, and then to request your approval of those recommended materials. We covered this in Dr. Golden's presentation a few weeks ago, but I wanted to highlight again that we do connect this program and this specific adoption to these strategic goal areas. In addition, we connect them to the strategic plan refresh, and the ones that we're really hitting with the Spanish language arts adoption is ensuring third grade literacy and reducing the gaps in achievement among student groups. So kind of just connecting and dovetailing with that previous presentation. Our goals with the Spanish Language Art Committee were very much aligned with our master plan for the dual language program. In that presentation, we received a question around dialect and what were we looking at with our Spanish language arts curriculum materials. And so I wanted to share with you a bit about the committee and the makeup of the people who were on the committee. So you'll see we had our administrators from Emerson, we had several classroom teachers from Emerson, We had a paraeducator from Emerson, a family support specialist from Emerson. We had middle school representation. We had LMS representation. We also had EL coach, EL facilitator representation, and then our natural leaders. So we had two members from the natural leaders committee who joined us. And you can see from the arrows, most of our experience or dialect areas were in Central America and Mexico. Several people learned in the US, and we had several people also speak Castilian. So just kind of wanted to highlight that and share with you. We had some pretty diverse perspectives, but also we really centered together and made choices based on a collective understanding. And so I wanted to give a real high-level overview of the instructional materials adoption process. And I know that Mike McCarthy is going next with math, and so hopefully between the two of us, we'll hit everything. But if you have questions at the end, please do ask. So our purpose really was to evaluate the materials, make sure there are standards aligned, built on best practices, and then developing that implementation plan, which I will go over in a little bit. We used policy 2311 and procedure 2311P to guide our process. And again, just a high-level overview of 2311P, that process, and how we went through the whole thing from beginning to end. And so we started the work in November on reviewing our state standards and national standards. So you see the guide, the pictures below. And so we have the guiding principles for dual language education. That's a frame that we mentioned in that last presentation. We have the world-class instructional development and assessment standards, which are the Spanish language development standards, and then the Common Core State standards that guided our initial work. We requested materials from several or five different curriculum companies. And then we really worked on aligning our understanding of the district mission, vision, goals, 21st century skills. We dug into best practice for dual language acquisition, and then we really looked at 2311P to start to develop our key review criteria. In addition, these are just the other pieces of 2311P, which you are most likely familiar with. We did the review based on all of the appendices, which I'll go through in a little bit. We had a virtual open house this year, just for COVID times, which was a little bit challenging, but also it provided an opportunity for more people to actually engage and look at materials online, which is cool. And then we went through the process of developing our implementation plan. And so I'm really excited to share with you our recommendation for our Spanish language arts curricular materials, and that is American Reading Company Core. And this would be for our kindergarten through 5th grade dual language program. So there are many reasons we chose this as a recommendation. First and foremost, this curriculum was actually developed for dual language programs. So when we were talking about best practice and dual language acquisition, they are built on those foundations. And so that was really exciting for us to see. We also wanted to highlight that EdReports has this curriculum as all green. It's like the first comprehensive ELA program to meet all of the requirements within EdReports, which was really exciting for us. And it's a pretty big deal. So we kind of felt like that was something that we really wanted to highlight there. So within the process, I wanted to share with you some of our key criteria and what we thought was really important to look at when we were looking through all of the different curriculum options. And these were the things that we developed as a committee together. You'll see a big list here, and I'm not going to read these all to you, but that first bullet is directly from the Center for Applied Linguistics guiding principles. And so we centered on that. So we wanted to make sure that whatever curriculum we provided was aligned to academic, biliteracy, and social cultural competence. Super important for us. And then that second piece you heard in Dr. Golden's presentation about that 90-10 model, we had to have a curriculum that supported that model. And so this curriculum does that. This is the other pieces of our key criteria. This year, we're focusing a lot of professional development on science of reading and those reading foundational skills to really get at our earliest learners and shoring up their reading foundational skills. And so we wanted to make sure that this curriculum was aligned to really centering on reading foundational skills for our K2 learners in the way that best supports dual language acquisition. So not exactly the science of reading, but those best practices that support our dual language learners. The other thing I want to highlight here is also family engagement. So family engagement was a huge part of our conversation. We know that families are so excited about this program, and so we wanted to ensure that whatever curricular materials we have can meet the needs of families to engage in the learning with their students. Within 2311P, there are also several other appendices. So we reviewed for bias and we reviewed for accessibility for special populations. I hope when you saw the key criteria before, you also saw those things reflected because those were very important to our committee members. Appendix E is all about compatibility with our technological infrastructure. So I wanted to say thank you up front to the board of directors and to our taxpayers for supporting all of our technology. As we know this year, it's been so important, and now we want to be prepared for anything in the future. So this curriculum is compatible with our current systems. It integrates with Clever. That is something that we currently use. So that's an easy thing for us to implement. And then for Appendix F and G, we did that virtual open house, and that was for that community and staff feedback. And then this goes into our implementation plan. So the exciting part about implementation of the Spanish language arts adoption is that we were talking about a whole program. So this isn't really just a, how do we implement Spanish language arts? This is a, how do we start a dual language program? And how do we build this from the ground up? And so, of course, working with Blythe and the Emerson team, we're looking at initial professional development in August with publisher support. We're talking about building instructional maps that will support the roll-up each year. So we'll build the kindergarten ones first, first grade next, etc. We want to focus on job-embedded professional development throughout the year to support that kindergarten team so that they can continue to learn with the curricular materials. And then there's also building level PD that Blythe is looking at to ensure that culture of the school. And so how does this curriculum implementation actually mesh with that building of culture? And of course, this rolls up every year. And I wanted to share with you some work that we did at our final recommendation meeting. And so we had our final two. It was 100% consensus for American Reading Company, but I still wanted to ask the team what we could do to ensure that all parties are happy with this final recommendation. So what are the things that we need to continue to consider as we work on this implementation plan? And so we talked about specialists. So how are we ensuring that librarians get training so that they can support with when kids go to their specialist time? How is this going to be implemented or integrated with the culture of the school? What about collaboration for the whole team? How are we getting online training? So really like hitting all of these questions so we could start thinking about what we needed to do moving forward. And then I want to give a final closing from Blythe, and then I can open up for some questions.
Apreciamos el apoyo brindado por parte de la Junta de Directores a nuestro plan de estudios propuesto, American Reading Company. Esperamos su recomendación y apreciamos su apoyo continuo. Gracias.
All right, well, thank you so much for your time today and greatly appreciate all of you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much for a very thorough outline and presentation regarding our new dual language program and the materials that we are considering for adoption. I had a couple questions, and one is just my lack of knowledge. So you talked about diversity within the text. What does that look like in a dual language program? Because when I looked at the photo of the folks on the team and where they all learn Spanish, it's worldwide. And so Spanish culture is all over the world, and it looks very different in different locations. What are you looking for when you're looking for diversity?
So that's a really great question. And our family support specialist at Emerson really helped to kind of help us better understand where are all of our families coming from. And really they're coming from everywhere. So the curriculum should reflect not just Latin America and not just Mexico, but where are all of our other Spanish speaking cultures within the world? And so how are we reflecting that, you don't just need to live in one area to speak a language? And what do cultural traditions look like around the world? And how are we getting authors to reflect that as well?
So just as a follow-up, some of the pieces that the committee looked at when looking at American Reading Company, and actually some of the work that Mrs. Spear has done around building the actual Emerson library, is authentic text, authentic Spanish text. So texts from Mexico, texts from Guatemala, texts from Spain that are not English books that have been just translated, but authentic text from authentic Spanish-speaking and Hispanic writers as well.
Thank you. And that answered kind of a related question about where do our Spanish-speaking students come from, which you answered. And then my other question, which I'm not sure, this is really not part of the adoption process, but I'm curious about the teachers for the program, as you were talking about collaboration and stuff. Do we have teachers, instructors within our district who are going to be a part of this, or is this something that we're looking outside of the district to hire? And I know that's not really maybe the scope of the presentation.
No, but it's a really important question because we want our students to be able to benefit from people who are biliterate in Spanish. So we do have some staff within the district who can participate in or teach in this program. We have worked through the Everett Education Association, our teachers union, to do a letter of agreement so that when we are hiring or transferring people into these positions, that they have prerequisite skills to be able to instruct our students in the 90-10 model. So sometimes we can hire outside of the district, sometimes we may have candidates within the district. I believe that Principal Young is doing a really intentional job when she is looking at hiring people for Emerson, even though they may not, this is just a program that's starting in kindergarten this year, having biliterate teachers in the staff. So you heard Mrs. Spear talk about, making sure that the librarian has some opportunities to be able to speak Spanish as well. So as we're continuing to build that staff and take opportunities for hiring, that is a piece that we're looking at, is how can we recruit and retain high quality biliterate teachers to teach in all grade levels at Emerson.
Thank you. Directors, do you have questions or comments or student representatives? Go ahead.
I have one question. As we progress, the expectation is that kindergarten is the first year. The second year, that cohort will go up to first grade, so we still then maintain kindergarten. Are we also looking to hire staff, the school staff that have the prerequisite of being able to speak in both languages?
Yes, that's exactly right. So when we have those kindergartners rolling up to first grade, we'll know how many first grade teachers we'll need to be able to participate in that program. And if we are growing at Emerson, or maybe there are other people who are transferring out at different grade levels, we'll restaff it with staff who are biliterate so that we can continue to feed that program.
Sorry, this is more program stuff. The curriculum sounds right, but is it one class 90-10 and another class English, or is the school converting to Spanish?
So currently, and I might actually ask Dr. Golden to step and help me out in case that I misspeak on this. But my understanding is that we are planning for 3 sections of Spanish kindergarten next year.
How many total sections of the school?
I believe 5, correct?
So,
Yes.
I guess my deeper question is, if we're making those Spanish, are there kids that are moving to other schools because they're not Spanish, that they won't fit there?
No, we're planning on 3 sections of dual language and 2, but we have capacity to add a 6th section if we have the need for another English section. Or dual language.
So an Emerson English only student or non-Spanish speaking, because you have all, I mean, 90 languages as well. So the non-Spanish speakers will be in the general.
They could be. Some may end up in the dual language program.
Okay.
Our plan is 50 native Spanish and 50% native English within that dual language.
Thank you. That's what I was hoping to hear.
Yeah.
Because I know that's a benefit too, because I do believe, and Mr. Peters is back, I do believe Blake speaks multiple languages. So how do you give that gift to some of our students? So thank you.
I think my question's going more programmatic as well, but I mean, so I think this is going to be widely popular, and so I almost think that, I guess it's good that we have the option, and I guess how's that going to work, right? So I was thinking everything in the schools that I've toured myself in, South Beach town, there's just no choice, right? When you go to school X, your child is in the class up there, it's not like, oh, we're gonna give it, because that for me gets a little broad on the playground. So am I hearing that a parent could say, hey, I don't want this whole Spanish immersion thing, I'm gonna leave the English class?
We do have, so yes, we have dual language program classes, and we also have English speaking classes at Emerson. So if a parent decides that they're an Emerson resident area student, they can choose to elect to go into the dual language immersion program, or they can elect to remain in a completely English speaking class at this time. Now, project out 10 years, that may change, and we may need to rethink how we are serving resident area students who don't choose to participate in that program. But right now, currently, we have the capacity to serve both students who are engaging in dual language as well as students who are not engaging in dual language at that building.
Yeah, I almost, I'm just putting it out there, I just, residential, I kind of thought the opposite, right? Like, I didn't think it would be an option, just because
I was pleased that the non-native Spanish will learn Spanish.
yeah, but this, I mean, to me, I think what I've seen successful, and this is enough, it was playground dynamics. And I've seen it in our schools, unfortunately, like firsthand, right? And so sometimes there could be, actually, they're just one-offs, right? Where you have kiddos who are like, oh, you're in that Spanish program, and I'm in the English program. And only a certain type of kid, because when we have parents raising their hand and saying, I don't want my kid, first graders, to learn Spanish. I mean, to me, it's really working extra in those metropolitan cities to get that experience, right? And so I would think that we would be turning away families and having wait lists and just even people trying to get in all of the district. But there's also the potential, if we say you have that option to raise your hand to be English only, and now you've really got the de facto segregated school. So I think it's, I mean, we're down the path of, maybe in a year visiting it, and maybe the panorama study shows it, is that sense of belonging, right? And I'm just trying to play it out as a first and second grader where you're already a little bit in your ways, and you have maybe certain biases because you're like 6. And that bias is reinforced because I'm in the English only class and you're in that Spanish class over there, or vice versa. It just seems like there could be some potential problems.
I agree. I think that there could be potential problems. I also think that Principal Young has done a really intentional job around creating a culture and a community within that school of bilingualism, as well as inclusivity. So she is well aware that, yeah, you could have maybe some separation of like, oh, you're in that class or you're in that class. But I think the level of intentionality in which she has brought her staff in on this, the amount of staff who are not kindergarten teachers in the dual language program, who are learning Spanish so that they will be able to communicate and connect with students. I know that their specialists are actively seeking out Rosetta Stone and other resources that we're providing so that they can provide that full immersion program. And it's really actually creating such a positive climate and culture in that building that fosters that inclusivity. So I hear what you're saying, where it could be divisive, but celebrating that diversity and using that as a stage for building a truly inclusive community of learners in that school, that I know that's her passion, and I think if she were here tonight, she would reinforce that. But I think we're aware of it, and we're actively working to ensure that it doesn't create the playground divisiveness, that it's truly the school that unites. And we're really, really hopeful for that. But it's definitely something that we'll take into consideration as we move forward.
And I think too, it's not as much the playground as the parents. And it is we've experienced that it's when you're the other, and the kids didn't see themselves as other. It's sometimes the parents that see the other. And my daughter never saw herself as other. And so it's just sort of, it's how do you, but I appreciate what you're saying about the culture, and I know Blythe and Jackson, and it's about the culture.
But it's also in 10%, right? So in 10, everyone's intention is completely right on track. I just feel like when we give parents the opportunity to raise their hand and say, I do not want my child in Spanish immersion, there's a lot to unpack. So I guess the best case is to do the district be okay with say every in our, we all want to learn. We can, it sounds like, have 6 sessions, 5 sessions, this version, because we learn basically let the market dictate what we're providing. And that's actually good, because I think there's some social media community, there's some community, there's to get the word out, because to me, that would be a true success where everybody wants to be in that inclusive culture.
It's interesting that, you brought that up, because I was thinking kind of similarly, but opposite in that, you may have folks that speak completely different language, that English is their second language already, and so to add a third language in on top of that may be a little overwhelming for kindergarten, right? So that those might be people that are opting into the English language classes. But I think it's good to kind of look at both ways and see. And my only other question is problematically, I like the curriculum. I think there's a lot of good intention and a lot of good work by the community on that curriculum. So how soon are we going to start out of school? We got about a year to get it.
Director Nichols, I'm going to take that as a rhetorical question.
No, but seriously, so is there a plan for expansion?
I think right now, we're currently trying to grow this program, and as it gains legs, and as we continue to see the need, we're going to continue to look at dual language programs to be offered at other schools. So right now, we're just wanting to get this one off and started really well, but we are excited about the opportunities that this provides not only our students, but our communities. And we definitely have sights on it growing these programs in other elementary schools as well.
Okay, so I guess I'm just looking for, if you haven't even thought of a timeline, we're going to try to get through the 5 years of implementing this program and understanding, and then look at other schools, or are we going to, within a couple of years, do a program evaluation and then assessments?
It's likely the latter, which is we'll do program evaluations, see where we're at, see how we're functioning. There also, the other pieces is that we also are planning for what will we do with these students when they get into 6th grade at a middle school.
Right.
And helping to plan out not just kind of the horizontal growth, but also that vertical growth, so that we can ensure that those students are also having opportunities, robust and rigorous opportunities for biliteracy when they get into middle school as well. So growing out and growing up is the plan.
Almost both. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Further questions? Comments? Well, thank you very much. I think the directors all made great points. It will be something that we will continue to monitor. I think we've always put a great emphasis, and I think rightfully so, on neighborhood schools. And I would hate to see Emerson not be a neighborhood school because parents are forced to choose in a program. And at the same time, we've had Highly Capable as a separate program in our schools for a very long time. And that you have one cohort that sticks together, all K through 5, versus all the others are blending and mixing, and it can create some playground situations occasionally. But I appreciate the thought that you put into this, and I want to thank Mrs. Spears for a great presentation this evening. Thank you both.
Thank you.
I think you stay.
I get to stay. I get to stay at the podium.
And our next item of business tonight is 12.03. I'm going to put on my glasses this time. Our K-5 core math instructional materials adoption. I am super excited to hear about this, given our focus on improving mathematics at all grade levels. So take it away.
I just want to double check because I think, are we screen sharing? Okay, great, perfect. Good evening again. We're very excited to introduce Mr. McCarthy, who will be leading his team and sharing with you the instructional materials adoption for our K-5 core mathematics. Long time coming. So, Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you, Dr. Bowden. Good evening, President Mason. We're really excited to share this with you tonight. Dr. Saltzman and Board of Directors, and the Everett public school community. On behalf of a great team of leaders, teachers, community members, and that made up the 2020-21 Elementary Math Instructional Review Committee, I'm excited about sharing our process and recommendation of a new core resource for elementary school. This powerfully connects our youngest learners to secondary mathematics that aligns our system of support for leaders and families, and that our teachers and community are excited about. Tonight, we'll explain the characteristics of the recommended instructional materials for our elementary students' mathematics experiences in grades K through 5, and we'll also formally request the recommendation of these materials be accepted. The purpose of the adoption process was to evaluate a replacement for the elementary math materials that have been in use since 2013-14 school year. Our math department will explain the process, our teachers will explain the characteristics of the recommended materials, and our school leaders will share our implementation plans. Our process has led us to recommending a material that is standards aligned. It's built upon best practices for teaching mathematics in ways that keep equity and achievement at the forefront. So as I shared, this presentation is much more about the collective team's work than it is about my presentation. And it's about that team's work in impacting student learning. The adoption of a resource being used by nearly 700 teachers and over 10,000 students and their families necessitated a broad, brilliant, and connected 60-member strong committee from every region that includes general education teachers across K-5, special education teachers from multiple programs, leaders from the building level and district level, as well as a cross-section of our community. So while I stand to launch this presentation, Cindy Foster, principal of Lowell Elementary, Deb Strong, coach at Forest View Elementary, Stephanie Beardrill at Petty Creek Elementary, Dustin Gowan at Monroe Elementary, along with Tracy Clifton and Jana Sanchez, all present a much broader group, or represent a much broader group, excited and ready to move forward with a powerful math resource for our students and families. So with the input and collaboration, the learning and leadership of this committee, we're ready to implement and sustain shifts in instructional practices necessary for student success in elementary, middle, high school, and beyond. I'd love for you to welcome the amazing members of our team, starting with Mrs. Tracy Clifton.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Clifton, and my role with Everett Public Schools is as an elementary STEM facilitator, focusing on supporting students and teachers in preschool through second grade. Having been a primary teacher and teacher leader at Woodside Elementary, I recognize the great need to adopt a resource that supports our youngest learners to position them for success. My lens through this process, as well as the lens of the many primary teachers on the committee, was of our earliest learners. Something we are really proud of is the system alignment that comes in the broad representation of our school system and community on our adoption committee. So not only were there those primary teachers from every region in our district, every other facet was represented. I'd like to also highlight that going through this process, we had the participation of 2 to 3 members from each school, a principal from every region, and the inclusion of families throughout. With this diverse and representative committee, we focused on these KPOs and know that with the strategic plan's priority outcomes, including increasing student achievement in mathematics, this adoption process was more than adopting a textbook for students, but also about creating opportunity to support teachers, leaders, and families so that, like our mission in Everett Public Schools says, our students will lead and shape the future. We strongly believe that that happens in math by making sense of rigorous, relevant, and real mathematics in ways that are creative, interactive, collaborative, inclusive, and culturally sustaining.
Good evening. I'm Jana Sanchez, and I have the honor and privilege of serving as a 3rd through 5th grade STEM facilitator in Everett Public Schools. I've been both a teacher and facilitator at the elementary and middle school grades. And in addition to needing a resource that supports the K2 band of learners, we also need a resource that supports the upper elementary grades and connects to middle school, high school, and beyond. Throughout this process, our committee's commitment was to keep the best interests and learning needs of each Everett Public Schools student in mind. We truly believe that all students can learn, and our committee selected a curriculum that lives this belief by design, by its rigor, and its support. We arrived at this recommended curriculum by following the rigorous and comprehensive instructional materials process outlined in policy 2311 and procedure 2311P.
I'm not sure this is actually shared.
Yeah.
There it is.
It was through the rigorous and comprehensive adoption process our committee began meeting in November of 2020. Despite the remote nature of our committee's work, in partnership, both school and community members of the adoption committee built on the math performance status report delivered to the board of directors in January, reviewing current data and trends in mathematics both within Everett as well as across the state and nation. We use the text Catalyzing Change in Early Childhood and Elementary Mathematics to learn together about the latest research and best practices for instruction. We solicited materials for review, and we began screening these materials for fit in Everett Public Schools. Using the policy 2311 appendices, we identified evaluation criteria aligned to equity and access, Washington State Learning Standards, both content and process, 21st century skills, the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics Effective Math Teaching Practices, and Catalyzing Change's 4 key recommendations as driving factors. To ensure that the reviewed materials align to our district mission, vision, and goals, committee members were steeped in learning experiences to build and calibrate understanding in these 5 areas.
As Jana said, one of the key learnings of this committee was built on the text Catalyzing Change in Early Childhood and Elementary Mathematics, along with its key 4 recommendations. These recommendations from the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics highlight the importance of students experiencing joy and confidence as emerging mathematicians, dismantling structural obstacles, implementing equitable instructional practices, and organizing mathematics instruction along a shared pathway to allow for a foundation of strong mathematical understanding. The 4 key recommendations grounded our work so that we can move toward shifting instructional practice in math classrooms to impact student learning through the adoption of new curricular tools. Each of these ideas connect well to current Everett Public Schools collaboration and ensuring early learners are set up for success from pre-kindergarten. Building on this success in the early years, we know our students will achieve at high levels in our secondary schools.
So again, despite the remote nature of this adoption year, we use our amazing committee's shared knowledge, the metrics developed, and the field testing to determine the best material for adoption. Throughout the process, adoption team members connected back to their schools and their communities in order to provide a voice in the selection process beyond the adoption committee. After reviewing a field of over 15 publishers to 6, committee members used Board Procedure 2311P appendices to rate materials against predetermined criteria. Through this application of the criterion to the materials, committee members moved 3 resources forward to field testing during the months of March and April, and allowed committee members to gather student and teacher feedback from authentic experiences in EPS classrooms, even in that remote environment. During field testing, we hosted 3 staff open house events and also elicited feedback from community after digital previews. The final step in the adoption process was to review all the data collected to identify strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities in this new curriculum. Data was analyzed, and this eliminated the results from students, teachers, and community, leading to a clear and unanimous referral of instructional material. We are extremely pleased to share that the Elementary Adoption Committee enthusiastically selected I Am K-5 Math, an open educational resource by Illustrative Mathematics, published by Kendall Hunt with the copyright date of 2021 for recommendation. This recommendation was brought to the Instructional Materials Committee on April 18th, and this committee put forth the recommendation to the superintendent and to you, the board of directors. We think it's important to highlight the collective support of this recommendation. During the April 14th, 2021 meeting, committee members were surveyed to determine which criterion was their first choice, as well as which publisher they would support. Of the 52 responses, we were able to reach a clear consensus that Illustrative Math was overwhelmingly selected as the first choice, as well as 98% of the committee saying that they could support this implementation. One of the pieces of data we were curious about was whether there's a potential for a split among levels or different teaching groups, and that did not prove to be the case. I'm excited to now have teachers and leaders share in these roles about the why of the selection of illustrative mathematics. We'll begin with Stephanie Beardrill.
Good evening. My name is Stephanie Beardrill. I teach 5th grade at Penny Creek Elementary, and I'm excited to share with you this evening about why our committee selected illustrative mathematics for recommendation. There were many reasons, and first of all, it aligns to the Common Core state standards, which include the core content, as well as fully integrated mathematical practices. For students, these standards are the what students should be learning and the how they should be engaging with the math. And were fully developed in illustrative mathematics, with support for teachers implementing these rich math practices. The beginning of each unit and lesson gives standards alignments for those lessons, as well as teacher and student-facing learning goals, also called learning targets, and a lesson purpose. The curriculum also provides an overarching view of how each standard is addressed by lessons throughout the year. This is an example from the 2nd grade standards. The next key reason why we're recommending illustrative mathematics is because of the variety of instructional supports that it has to offer. The instructional supports are built into the lesson structure and connect to what our system has been shifting towards, a launch, explore, summarize structure. Lessons start with a warm-up to launch the lesson with open-ended questions, then lead into activities to engage students, encouraging multiple ways to represent the math, and end with a closing discussion that allows students time to synthesize their learning and understanding. These components of the lesson are all supported with scaffolds for the effective teaching practices from the National Council of Teachers of Mathematics, shown here. The curriculum also provides examples of teacher talk moves for building critical academic language and engagement with the mathematics. These are just 2 of the many examples of student vital actions that the curriculum helps teachers bring about, getting students to talk about each other's thinking and getting students to engage and persevere, which will ultimately help students in their learning. The illustrative mathematics materials and lessons use a variety of representations that progress across the grade bands to help students make connections from more concrete to more abstract representations. Another benefit of illustrative mathematics is that the middle schools and high schools in the district are already using it. If students start using this curriculum in elementary school, this sets them up for success in secondary, as they will already be familiar with the structure and vocabulary of the curriculum. This alignment K-12 will also benefit families, as they will have fewer online platforms to learn and navigate, and they will be able to support their students from home more readily. Additionally, each unit offers a 2-page family support letter that can be sent home, outlining the key learnings of the unit, as well as some questions families can ask at home. Now for more perspective from our committee, Mr. Dustin Gowan.
You can tell I'm smiling under here. Hello, my name is Dustin Gowan. I'm a special educator at Monroe Elementary School. And participating in this adoption committee has been a self-reflexive journey, especially after engaging the current research from NCTM through the book Catalyzing Change. I've questioned my current understanding and past practices, and in doing so, I realized that, 1, past differentiation practices actually marginalize students through ability grouping, which was an unintentional form of student tracking. It's imperative a new curriculum provide effective scaffolds to address both language acquisition and special populations. And that intentional curriculum design can replace past inequitable differentiation practices, which affected both rigor and relevance for many students. Maintaining rigor while providing equal access is a challenge that IM addresses through Universal Design for Learning, or UDL. IM ensures that each lesson, A, has multiple means of engaging students through relevance and inquiry structures, B, that concepts have multiple representations over several activities, and C, that students are able to demonstrate their conceptual understanding in flexible ways. So tech integration is another recognized advantage of our IM program. Our IT department has an ongoing relationship with IM through our grades 6-12 adoption. And the IT department shared that IM integrates with both Canvas, Clever, and that assessments can be preloaded into Performance Matters. There's even content integrated into Desmos, and Desmos is an engaging digital platform that's currently being utilized by our secondary students. So finally, the publisher will work with EPS to provide targeted professional learning by certified IM trainers. While others on the team will elaborate on the proposed path of professional learning, it's important to mention that we will have the ability to develop our own math coaches into certified IM trainers. This process will help ensure our ability to continuously onboard new hires while strengthening high leverage practices within our PLC teams. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Mike.
So I'm grateful for our many teachers that participated in this process, and especially Stephanie and Dustin, as they've shared tonight their personal reflections on the process. And we realize that teachers and leaders will need the support of implementation, especially making these continued shifts that we've spoken about in this boardroom towards equitable and inclusive instruction for all students in Everett Public Schools. So part of our process shown here on this slide is our ask of our teachers, our principals, and our coaches what they would need in order to implement this with success. This is the feedback that continues to drive our thinking and planning towards a comprehensive plan for students and teachers. So to help share our plan for implementation, Principal Cindy Foster is going to come now.
Hi, I'm Cindy Foster. I'm the principal at Lowell Elementary School, and the implementation plan is a passion of mine and something that I really spoke to on the committee. So we know that adopting a powerful curriculum really isn't going to ensure academic achievement in all of our goals. Implementing a new curriculum with integrity that's aligned, articulated, guaranteed, and viable really is a Herculean task that needs to have a whole system of learning structured around it. Through collaboration efforts leaning on expertise and experience, as well as implementation best practices, we've outlined what we think is a powerful plan focusing on a continuous need for professional development for leaders first and teachers that will then support families and students. As we think about this implementation support, next slide, we want to focus on a systematic approach, like I said, to professional development. So thinking ahead to the support that is needed with implementation, we commit to not doing random acts of professional development, which has sometimes been a past practice. Instead, we want to be strategic in planning professional learning that is supported at the whole building level, as well as in professional learning communities. And then within these groupings of whole staff and in PLCs, we would have coaching cycles act as the binder that would keep the learning and the new instructional shifts moving forward. Connections from the district professional learning would then be transferred to the schools and disseminated through job-embedded learning, coaching, and professional learning communities. These elements would be key signatures of our systematic implementation. I now want to invite a very important member of the systematic approach to professional development, Coach Deb Strong from Forest View Elementary.
Hi, good evening. I'm Deb Strong from Forest View Elementary. As a coach, I'll be learning alongside my principal as we lead for instructional improvement. We'll connect our whole staff professional learning to coaching practice by identifying key shifts to work on as a system. Through job-embedded observation for evidence of learning lab cycles, teachers will not only hear about how to teach with the new materials, but they will practice and have embedded support and coaching from coaches and principals throughout. We have found that when teachers and leaders learn together with side-by-side coaching, they feel empowered to persevere with shifts in pedagogy and practice. In our support of balanced mathematics and equitable mathematics teaching, provided professional development steps away from the gradual release model of instruction, the I do, we do, you do model, to one that is learner-centered and based in problem solving and inquiry. Professional development will also be critical in shifting from a deficit model of assessment and instruction to one that is asset or strengths-based. This shift emphasizes student work evidence and observation as the primary data to inform instruction and re-engagement of the content, while developing student and teacher efficacy. These are challenging shifts for teachers as they move to identify what the students know and can do within a standard to determine student strengths, and then use those strengths to truly influence instruction for all. This professional development structure is cultivating a collective sense of agency, which is then mirrored in the classroom.
Thanks, Deb. So as you've heard, our implementation plan is key to the shifts that we'll be making. And as we've been sharing again in this boardroom, the shifts necessary from unproductive beliefs in mathematics to those productive beliefs. We want to continue to push on the practices of our system, of our teachers and our leaders. So as you've heard tonight, we have provided a brief overview of the instructional materials adoption process. Our teachers explained the characteristics of the recommended materials for adoption. Our leaders shared the implementation plans. And with this, we formally request the adoption of the K-5 math adoption from Illustrative Mathematics published by Kendall Hunt. This resource ensures the powerful vision for high-quality mathematics from kindergarten through high school and other public schools is realized across our system. It connects deeply to the Common Core standards for effective math teaching practices. It supports teachers and leaders in making shifts to 21st century mathematics required for success at the secondary level, where students have struggled the most. And it finally provides a strong foundation of mathematics in the early grades, ensuring readiness and opportunity to accelerate learning in the future. We welcome any of your questions from members of the team, and thank you for allowing us to speak with you tonight.
Thank you so much for, thank you to everyone for their part in presenting this information. Really great detailed overview of the new materials and the process that you went through and implementation, which as you mentioned is quite critical. I kind of have a big question I want to start out with. So we currently have a math program in, K-5. What are the biggest shifts here? Like if you had to boil it down to 1 or 2 points, because I'm assuming that we're teaching to the standards right now and we're doing a lot of these things. Where is the heart of what this program, this adoption is going to bring us?
Yeah, so Pearson Envision was really a pre-Common Core resource, and it is focused on that pedagogy, this gradual release. So a teacher does take notes of these ideas and then practice several times and have a worksheet to go home and continue to practice. So illustrative math is an inquiry-based model that's proven effective for students in learning key critical concepts. So teachers are launching a problem, they're having students explore it in groups, work together, and then the teacher summarizes. So the direct instruction occurs at the end of the lesson, which is a huge shift to get students to really persevere and grapple with mathematics.
And when you say that, and just as a follow-up, I don't have a math instruction background, but there's been a lot of different math theories, throughout the decades about how to teach math. The numbers haven't changed, but how we teach it has. And I guess, we came to, my question is, how do we know that this is more effective?
Yeah, so one of the key criterion in Appendix B was focused on the effective math teaching practices from NCTM, and NCTM is the recognized leader in research-based.
Yeah, because we're not the first to be doing this, so we're looking at the research and saying this is what is proving to be lifting math skills up in schools. Great, thank you.
My question, an extension of what was just asked there. Even though in the past we've always gone to alignment, a standard, it may not be the Common Core, but it was always aligned to the standards. And then it had math instructional supports, not in the way of digital support, but it provided the teacher with workbooks, and it provided the students with workbooks. And we also had an alignment base. When you say it's explicitly different than in the past, when in the past we've set the same basic information that we have here, how different is it? Because we've always had a tracking of a student so that students are prepared for certain classrooms in the high school and the middle school. And then we had some kids who were not prepared. How different is this adoption from previous ones so that we can ensure that all kids are prepared for middle school math, and not just the lower end math, but the higher end math, so they can be then prepared for those classes in high school, so that we can ensure kids get into, college and classrooms, AP classrooms, or those other types of higher level math classes. Because we've given support, we've said it has standards. What is the difference here now compared to what we've had before?
Yeah, so as Dustin Gowan shared, Mr. Gowan shared, in illustrative math, there are low floor and high ceiling tasks by design. So this curriculum was designed with the universal design for learning, where every student across the spectrum can enter into the mathematics, and they're given opportunity. And it's set up for students to be in the same space and to learn together, to grapple together, which is different from what Pearson and other resources have provided in the past. It's more of a sorting mechanism. Let's sort students that we think can into this group and sort students that we think can't in this group. And let's try to teach and remediate. This is putting students together to say, hey, we believe that you can reach these high standards. So it's tackling that belief gap with students, with teachers, and with families.
And what type of expectation do we have that this particular adoption will allow our kids to be prepared for those upper level classes in the high school or middle school, prepared for those courses?
I have a lot of confidence in this program, but also in the implementation. We just sent out a survey on Friday to sign up for the professional development, and over a quarter of the teachers are wanting to be on leadership team to lead forward this curriculum. So it's really exciting to see that coming.
I would also just add that one of the pieces that helps to prepare our students for the rigor of high school and beyond, quite frankly, is the opportunities for students to engage in critical thinking, rich student discourse. This curriculum is designed for teachers to implement math in a different way, to engage students authentically in that discussion and math talk, which builds those critical thinking skills. So it's not just about the computational process, it's about the thinking around mathematics, which higher level mathematics is going to, that's a required skill for higher level mathematics in high school and in middle school.
So, Mr. McCarthy, going back to the slide 12, and you'll have to forgive me on everything, the main details you mentioned too. But it looks like there was a question too, if your first choice is not selected, which materials can you support? And it looks like one person out of your group didn't want to support illustrating mathematics. And I was just wondering if that was, on a structural level, or they just didn't have, like, was there a concern that they had that you needed to address?
We appreciate the question. We don't know if that was a mistake or not. The feeling that was not voiced in space, and it continues to be a question when we put it up in front of people, but we do want to show the data as it came in.
Right.
There were multiple buttons that you could choose. If this isn't selected, what would you choose? So yeah, we have not had any vocal issue with illustrative math.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I just want to, it's obvious here that there's consensus, and I like how broad this group was. But I'm always curious to see, is there something that we need to address in order that anything like this to satisfy everybody? But seems like we have done it, so thank you very much.
And I appreciate that he stopped on one slide, and then I stopped on one slide. The implementation support, the post-it that says lots of good PD, but not just how the curriculum works, but how to shift our instruction, lesson structure, and routines. The fact that teachers thought of that, and it has a whole lot of stars. You use the word hope. It's also confidence. We've had exceptional teachers here, and they've been begging for new math for a decade. Maybe more, but the fact that they want to know how to do this, not just what it is, but the how, it gives me hope.
Thank you.
So just a couple of things, and I think it maybe address some of the previous comments from other directors. math is so hard, right? We look at those in numbers with our high schools together and not being able to one thing deep. But I think that starts so much earlier. And it starts foundational with this. And so when I look at this curriculum adoption, and I've sat through quite a few of these, it's like you read my mind. And I say that because my last two, I've got six, last two, I taught them that, and I taught them the book, series of books called Thread, right? And people say, why do you use Thread? And I have a really good reason, it just worked. And they're doing fairly well, I think, right now, high school students, so I think it did work. I realized why, because of your presentation, it's the joy and confidence of building unbelieving mathematicians. And that really sums up how we need to teach math at those foundational grades, so that when they get to those high school grades, they'll have that joy and confidence. They'll know they're mathematicians, and then they can ask the right questions, they can do the inquiry, they can supplement depending on their learning style, and they can interact really more productively with their current teachers. And so I love that this is setting that foundation. I also love the fact that it moves away from deficit assessment, which OMG, you said that, I was like, I checked it on my list. And so, because I think that's part of that problem, is that when you start with kindergartner or first or second grader in this deficit mindset and telling them what they learned, separating them from their peers, making them struggle with a math problem on their own, that does not bode well for a 10th grader who's looking at geometry cross-eyed, going, I have no idea where to start, but I know in first grade they told me I wasn't good anyway. So this is an amazing curriculum. I'm fully supportive of it, and I'm excited to see in 5 or 6 years what it does for the older kids, because they've had this foundation. So thank you for bringing this to us. Thank you for the work you've done. And just thank you for what I think is going to be a really good future for math in our district.
Thank you, Director.
May I ask one more question?
I was gonna ask,
Yeah.
Karen, did you have any comments?
Yes, please. I just want to say from the beginning of this, when it was stated that the first time that, or the last time that new curriculum was implemented was in the 2013-2014 school year, I was in 4th grade then. So that was hitting me. So it's really exciting to see like what the next step is here. And just like echoing again what Director Berg was saying, when I talk about math with my peers, like I consider myself to be okay at math, but I don't particularly enjoy it, and that's like a pretty common consensus around people. But also I hear a lot of high school students say like, you know, when I understand what I'm doing, I actually really like math, or when I get the concept, it's actually kind of fun. And it's like, it feels really rewarding to finally understand it. But you have so many people that get into the mindset of just like, I'm not very good at math. And this is a really important step of like just stopping that mindset in its tracks, because that stops people from even getting to the step of, I understand what's going on, and so I enjoy doing it. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for that, Karen. And Student Representative Hussein, are you still with us, and would you like to comment or any questions?
Yeah, I was just gonna comment. Thank you for the presentation. I can tell a lot of work has been put into this presentation, and it looks amazing. And I learned so much things that I did not know at all before. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Mitchell?
Yeah, sorry, I just have one, because we had the presentation for special ed, but what about highly capable, just personal experience when they skip that grade, and then there's that gap in knowing how to do math addition, and then you do subtraction, so we always have that gap, my daughter always had that gap. How does this now help those kids as they skip that grade to make sure they have the skills and don't lose foundational math?
Yeah, so I think this is something that we need to continue looking at here in Everett. What's great right now is that our highly capable program, 5th grade teachers use illustrative math at the middle level, and so the transition will be seamless, but I think us continuing to look at how we accelerate and why we accelerate, when we accelerate is something that we'd love to continue to think about.
I have one final question as well. When I was looking at the different print or letters you can send home for families, talking about, you know, that week's math or, I don't know the right word, but anyhow, you know what I mean, that thing. language translation, is that an option? I mean, because that's what digital now provides, you know, in the digital world, and then it looks like you have the sheet that you print out and send home, that's in English.
Yeah, what's been really great about Illustrative Math is they are, speaking of the dual language program, they are creating a completely Spanish translated teacher's edition and student edition with us. So that wasn't something that they were going to publish, but Dr. Golden's team and I talked with IM and they're going to create that in Spanish. So these materials are hot off the press June 30th. And so there's some things that we don't know what all is available, but they've been very welcoming to us providing suggestions. So we'll pursue those pieces with them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Dr. Saltzman.
And just to add, first of all, teachers and Principal Foster, thank you for staying with us this evening. I know it's been a full day, so thank you. Okay? Just 2 points I want to make is, first of all, when we started this journey, we had the community involved in the process. Am I correct? And I think that's another the public needs to hear, okay, because that's so important. But I think what stands out, we talk about moving mathematics, I think Deb said it, or maybe Cindy said it, but summer PD is going to be the principal and the teacher together. That's how you move the needle. That's how you continue building mathematicians, or what I would call scholars, when we talk about our kids, okay? You're going to have the principals and the teachers side by side. That's how you get this done. We talk about where you're going to move mathematics. So, and I believe that the company and the curriculum department will be there with them, right? Am I correct? So I think that's a great thing. I want our public to hear that, and our board to hear that, because that's how you have instructional excellence. So I thank you for bringing that up tonight.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments before we move on? Okay, with that, thank you so much again to all our presenters, and we will go ahead and move the math adoption to second reading, as well as the Spanish ELA dual language adoption. With that, we move on to unfinished business, and tonight we have a revised policy that Mr. Fluffenstein is going to present.
I apologize for the delay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, you're getting good at that, though, this sharing. Yeah, you've got it down.
There was a moment there where I did panic, I'm sorry.
You're good.
Well, this evening, I'd like to present for the board's consideration revisions to new policy 0010, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, have been made based on the feedback provided by the board in your regular meeting on April 20th and provided in your Friday report on April 23rd. And as you can see in the copy here on the screen, based on feedback to be more specific about the inclusivity of people with disabilities. So we've revised the language in the beginning paragraph here, and then also adjusted the paragraph here.
Directors, do you have any questions regarding the revised language in the policy?
I do. I just want to thank you, Mr. Fleckenstein. I was going to say Dr. Fleckenstein, but that will come. And I'm so grateful that you continue to put passion, respect, integrity, diversity, equity, and learning, collaboration in policy. Those are our core values, and our public needs to know those are our core values, and that we value each of them as students. That comes to us, no matter what. Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback. I want to recognize the people where credit is due for the work here. It isn't solely me. I just get the pleasure of presenting it. But the Equity and Access Team, Council, and our parent involvement in that process. So thank you for that feedback.
Understood. Thank you.
I forgot to say earlier, I did interview the 3 board candidates. student candidates, and one of them did actually, when she was talking about, her school or different things we could do better, she did talk about diversity, and she included, the physical and social, diversity, which I was really impressed that a student, we always hear about LGBTQ diversity, we always hear about, color diversity, for her to actually mention physical diversity, I was really impressed. So that our students see that difference, and I think that this policy reflects it, having that spelled out, so thank you.
Did, so when you revise this, do you work with after the come out with one language, or do you just come out together, how do you decide on this language?
Yeah, this particular language, what we do is we go into other policies that exist within the district, and we use similar language so they're consistent. And you would see the same language in other policies the board has adopted.
Any further comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, thank you. We will go ahead and move this to second reading at our next regular meeting.
Thank you.
That takes us to section 14.0, which is new business, and we do not have any new business this evening, which moves us to upcoming agenda items. Dr. Saltzman.
Okay, at the May 18th special meeting, the board will discuss the superintendent's evaluation. At the regular meeting on May 25th, we'll have progress to graduation of the class of 2021 through language ELA SLA second reading. K-5 math instructional series is second reading. Student representation selection. Student reopening update. I do the final one for this year, okay, today. Office of the Superintendent's Public Instruction Remediation Plan. Superintendent's contract. Comprehensive annual financial report for 2019-2020. 2020-21 WIAA membership agreement. And then finally, Snohomish County Health District agreement.
On the 2020-21 WIAA membership agreement, is there a modification or change expected?
That's an annual agreement, I believe.
That's an annual agreement. No changes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to know if perhaps there was a change reflective in the timing of sports again.
That's different than what we'd be approving.
Okay.
That's right. This is accreditation from WIAA, and it's exactly an annual update that we do every year. And
okay. So, thank you. That's what I wanted to know.
Stay tuned for sports schedules.
Yeah. Yeah.
They seem to change weekly, so we'll see how the fall rolls out.
President Mason?
Yes.
Item 1301, unfinished business, is actually a specific meeting, so it's set for action if you like.
Okay.
Or if you want to move it again.
Thank you for bringing that to my attention. I would like to back up and call for a motion to approve the revisions to adopt policy 0010, diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. I move adoption. Second. It's been moved and seconded that we adopt policy 0010 as written. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and move to a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed say no. The policy is adopted. Thank you, Jamie, for bringing that to my attention. Okay, we'll jump back to where we were in the meeting at executive and closed session. And this evening, we do not have an executive or closed session, which takes us to 17.0, which is adjournment. This meeting, May 11th, regular meeting, Everett Public Schools Board of Directors is adjourned.